Yeah, sure. Let's go. Oh yeah. Thank thank
Yay.
you, Brian, Bensi, and Hermie, and and the rest of the GDG group. Well, I hope you guys would enjoy today's session. Our goal today is to, so we would assume you know a little bit of the cloud already. So just a little bit, just the basics. Don't worry. So today we'll be introducing to you yung buzzword ng zero trust, right? And then we're gonna go ahead and have a little bit of demo later how we can implement that in Google Cloud as well. So, okay, before I start, I'd like to dedicate this time to my Lord Jesus Christ and for the rest of the people here. I would like to thank you guys as well for spending time here. So, okay, so let's proceed. So, our goal today is understanding how do we achieve zero trust in a faster manner, especially with Google Cloud, and what is zero trust, and understand all of those. So, okay, guys, rules of engagement. What we want you guys to feel comfortable. We want you guys to list down your answers over the chat box. Later on, we'll have a Q&A question with the rest of the team, and then we'll have a bit of demo at the end of this first hour. So the bit of demo, I've prepared something in an environment already, but I'll gladly walk you through how we did that and then show you how zero trust works. Bit of my background. I've been in the IT industry for 5 years. I've been in the cloud industry for 4 years out of 5 years. And well, I love to watch K drama, anime, and other Netflix originals. I don't like horror, by the way. I hate horror simply because I find it, scaring myself isn't that enjoyable. I guess. So I prefer more adventure like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and the likes. Right? So what is Collab? Well, our company, our mission is to accelerate meaningful change in workplaces in every market we operate. We are Philippine based, um, and our goal here is to teach enterprises and through communities. We want to teach end users as well on how to leverage Google Cloud to their extent, right? Maybe you're gonna build your next app, right? You're gonna build your unicorn app, right? So, Collab, brief background, we're on Google Cloud and Okta Premier Partner, and recently we've become an AWS partner as well. We are an established, we established ourselves way back 2014. We're around 25 plus people. Serm is actually one of us as well. So you feel free to like ask any Google Cloud, AWS, or Okta questions later. Um, and then I'll skip through that, jump to the agenda. So, well, we will be learning a lot of things today. Especially later, I'm more excited actually on letting you see the security cloud security command center with Aaron. I'm sure you'll enjoy that part as well because that's super powerful. So today and the first half of the morning will be understanding what zero trust and then what are the basic architectural consideration if you're gonna implement zero trust. And then later, in the second half, you will be learning with Aaron. Aaron's a very well decorated engineer, much like Sir. They eat certificates for lunch. I don't know why or how, right? But yeah, they're so they have like X5 certificate per cloud, something like that. Anyway, so okay, so let's start. I'm gonna talk about first the state of cloud security, right? Like what's happening outside. We want to be able to understand that so that we will be able to appreciate what's happening in the cloud space as well, the innovations that's been happening in Google Cloud. So way back few years, few quarters back, specifically Q3 of 2019, Gartner released a report saying around 60% of organizations will be using an external service provider that's managed in the cloud by 2022. So the goal here is that we need to understand that every organization's eventual direction is to move to the cloud. Why? Well, in my previous session, if you joined the previous GDG session, it's it's how organizations would be able to really move faster than the traditional setups, right? Simply because cloud is now commodity. It's like water. If you need it, go buy it and drink. If you don't buy it. You don't pay for anything, right? Now the challenge with that is that traditional networks aren't enough. So why happening outside the world right now is that breaches happen every now and then. And this, according to the reports by Verizon DBIR or Data Breach Investigation Report, it's around 7,000 reported breaches for 2019 alone. Remember, reported breaches. There's a lot of breaches that have gone unreported. Simply because number one, some companies don't know they got breached. Second, some companies do not want to tell the world they got breached, right? Unless somebody finds out about it, right? Now, among all those breaches, there's about 15.1 billion records that was released. So if you're wondering if your records are one of those 15.1 billion, you could go ahead and check out the website haveibeenpawned.com and just put your email there. It's quite a helpful website actually. Now the problem there is among all those breaches, more than 80% are caused by stolen credentials or weak credentials. So now the good thing is that enterprises and organizations are starting to learn, right? Around 62% said that based on the Cybersecurity Insider survey that they were running across thousands of organizations, their primary challenge is really more on securing their apps in their hybrid cloud environment. So, for example, I have on-premise legacy applications. Maybe I'm a startup. I'm using my own servers. Maybe I'm a legacy enterprise. I'm using maybe a data center I bought from maybe the internet providers or some data center providers, right? The problem there, it's becoming complex because the moment I try Google Cloud Platform, now I have two large environments. Not to mention, once you try Google Cloud Platform, you have a global footprint, meaning you have a global network. You're not tied to just one network, not just one region, unlike other clouds. Well, in other clouds, you have to set up peering and set up VPNs. In Google Cloud, again, we would be assuming that you kind of understand a little bit of how it works. So one of them would be creating a global network in Google Cloud without having to set up any private connection. So those are the things that adds complexity now to companies. The second one would be understanding that they need to secure their apps. 68% said that their priority is PAM and MFA solutions, right? but the problem is there's not much mature products out there. Hence why from us in Collab, we believe that Okta is the way and even Google Cloud is the way. Simply because Google Cloud Identity already provides you an out-of-the-box MFA, plus the fact that there's an identity platform. It's like an AWS Cognito that allows you to have MFA on the fly and supports inbound federation from your SAML or OpenID Connect providers such as Google, Facebook, or it could be AD or something else. Right? Now, 78% of those organizations, that's cloud first organizations, aims to adopt zero trust. So that's our main topic today. So remember, even though you're not, even though you're cloud first, it doesn't mean you would adopt zero trust. For the reason that a lot of companies think of cloud as if it's just an extension of their data center, right? Yes, it is to some extent, but usually when we try to advise companies, when we work with customers, we tell them to don't treat cloud as if it's a data center, because usually data centers you start getting attached to it. In cloud, you should be attached to a cloud. You should be you should be cloud agnostic. That's why we promote hybrid cloud down the line, simply because if your let's say DR strategy is bad, then how do you go out from one cloud and move to another for maybe if one cloud goes down? Much like one big blue cloud 2 weeks ago went down, the entire cloud of that big blue guy went down simply because of their network issue, right? So we don't want that global outage. It's rare for a cloud to have for clouds to experience that, but it happened, right? So now the challenge there is that yes, companies are saying we're moving to the cloud, we're spending security, but ironically, security spend is not aligned with the risk. According to the Gartner forecast for the world spend, it's a fresh report actually. It's talking about how much percentage of your spending would be allocated to a specific security area. So according to that report, companies are only willing to spend around 8.4% for identity and access management. Ironically, according to again Verizon DBIR, 81% is because of 81% of the breaches is caused by weak and stolen credentials. So don't we find that ironic, right? It majority of the hacks happen because of stolen credentials or weak credentials. Why aren't companies spending for that? Well, that's because of the traditional mindset when it comes to perimeter, right? Perimeter defense, when they talk about it, everyone's hyped up when we talk about network, firewall, subnets, VLANs, and all those. All of those are what we call the castle and moat, classic castle and moat approach, wherein you create your network perimeter, and you create your trusted network, and then you set up VPNs for your users, remote users, and the moment they connect with your VPN, they're now a trusted user, right? Which is bad. Simply because that's what, for example, what happened with the Bangladesh hack. Hackers have been in the network for years. That's the problem. The hackers were watching every single computer, every single pattern of holiday, every single pattern of user behaviors. They've hacked into the network for the longest time, and simply because they had a weak credential, and they only found out about it after a week that the hack happened. The good thing that the entire hundreds of millions of dollars were stopped. It's only around $81 million that was lost, but that's still a lot, right? We don't want that to happen, and that's what we're gonna talk about now. What's the new security paradigm, right? And the latest security framework. So once we talk about protecting our users, we also have to understand it's not just about workforce anymore, right? Yes, network perimeter, maybe if you're a traditional, you don't have clouds, everyone's going to the office. Yes, that might work, right? Because everyone needs to be physically into the office. You don't want to give any VPNs at all. You lock it down physically, right? That could be done. But the problem is your workforce are moving around and you're gaining more users. Why? You have your suppliers. You want to be able to protect their accounts the way they interact with your system. You want to be able to protect your B2B partners, right? You want to be able to protect your subsidiaries, your BUs, your sister companies, the one you co-manage, right? How do I interact with those? Lastly, how do you protect your consumers? Because your network cannot go to the consumer's house. Therefore, your network dissolves, right? We can no longer assume trust. Because not only are we talking about users from everywhere around the place, around the world, we're also talking about your APIs, the APIs of your partners, the fintech APIs, and the other APIs. We're also talking about that. We're also talking about infrastructure that's hosted from multiple data centers, multiple clouds. How can we then protect ourselves? Network perimeter is already gone. It's beyond your office, right? So us in Collab, this we find this appalling that every company would still stick to their legacy and traditional mindset because they think, oh, the network's safe. No, it's never safe anymore, right? In the ever changing landscape of infrastructure, services, and users, identity becomes your new perimeter. You gotta know who's doing what, where, why, how. It's not enough to know what network are you using. So that's where zero trust comes in. So zero trust, our goal here is to understand the context of a user before we are able to give them access. Understand the context of a service account, an API, in order to give them access. Right? It's not just authorization anymore. Legacy authentication protocols such as Kerberos only gives you authorization. They don't authenticate users. It might look like authentication, but in reality, by definition of IETF, it's authorization. Okay. So to give you a background of what zero trust is, let's go back in time, way back 2009, around 11 years ago, by the name of John Kindervag. John Kindervag is a former forester engineer who is now the field CTO of Palo Alto. Hence why Palo Alto is starting to have a zero trust position as well when it comes to their products, simply because they have a very good leader at the helm of the company. So the background there is that way back 2009 there was a massive attack by China, Chinese backed hackers called Operation Aurora, and you can look it up, by the way, in Wikipedia. Just check out Operation Aurora. That massive attack targeted large U.S. companies with the intention to steal trade secrets. During that time, Google was one of those targeted companies. Google realized, they needed a more secure network design, a more secure access design. So they initiated the program called Beyond Corp, which we will be discussing later on. And in relation to that, that's Google's way of implementing the zero trust framework. So what is the zero trust framework, right? So this is the zero trust extended model by Forrester. Um, Gartner tried to create something called Carta. It's just a something similar, but uh, typically we try to stick with the baseline one. They added some some fluff over the zero trust model just to convert the names into something else. So for the sake of discussion, let's focus on zero trust extended model. This one we also believe that it's the simplest one. There's not much additional wordings and terms here. So zero trust tells you that in order to access data, I need to be able to create a trust inference, or trust inference means you need to build your trust based on evidences, multiple evidences. So we need to build our trust inference based on four things, and we need to be able to automate and orchestrate that, and then we need to analyze and adapt the results, right? So zero trust people means you don't just trust a user, a person, or a service account. Let's say if a user types username and password, you gotta be able to authenticate that user as well with other authentication factors such as multi-factor, one-time pins, biometric. So there's three types of factors usually. It's called knowledge factor, the possession factor, and then the biometric factor. So knowledge factor is your username, passwords, your secret question. So if you would notice, secret questions are already gone, right? They're non-existent anymore. Well, some companies still use it, but we don't recommend using it. It's not that safe, simply because people tend to answer the question directly, like what's the name of your favorite pet, and then you keep on posting the name of your dog or cat over internet. So people now know your secret questions answer, right? So knowledge factor is one thing, but we want to be able to have multi-factor authentication. So that's where SMS one-time pin comes in. Maybe if you want to go passwordless, you want to be able to integrate with biometric. Yeah. So that's the zero trust people. Zero trust devices means some of your devices could be company managed via mobile device management. So you can tag a device to a user and have an approved device. Zero trust network means that, okay, you're not just connecting from just any network, you need to connect from the corporate network. So that's possible. Or you want to be able to lock down the user to be able to access your apps only from a specific IP range or geolocation. Zero trust workloads means that you don't necessarily trust an API directly just because they have a shared key, the shared certificate. The problem here is that uh, you don't know who's calling that API. So you have to authenticate that API's call as well. So that's where OAuth and OpenID comes in. So OAuth authorizes a service-to-service transaction. However, OpenID Connect ties that transaction to a user call. We want to do that, right? So that from from application layer down to service layer, you can protect the user. Then we want to be able to automate, orchestrate again, and then analyze and adapt. So our line here is never trust, always verify. So in order to do that, Google deployed something like this. This is their architecture. You can look it up. Beyond Corp, there's tons of white paper. There's a lot of white paper in Google's website as well. You can read it up. I think there's around 4 chapters about Beyond Corp. So now, on the other hand, so one of the leading IAM solutions that's emerging is Okta. So this is their zero trust at a glance. So the way we deploy it is we want to be able to understand the app or user context to give the right people with the right access, the right resource with the right context, and you want to be able to assess that continuously. So be it Beyond Corp or maybe a more generic version, it depends. But at the end of the day, you will still have a maturity model that looks like this. Usually, you want to start with a fragmented identity. You want to solve it out because, again, identity is the foundation of zero trust. You want to be able to know who's doing what. The who part, if you don't have that, it doesn't matter if you know what's happening at the back. You can identify who's accountable, right? So accountability is the most important thing here. So what we want to do is to go to stage three, obviously, right? But what we see here is that if we deploy, legacy style deployments, you won't be able to really have a smoother security experience and achieve zero trust simply because you create your own siloed databases, siloed authentication models. maybe you're using AD, but you're buying new apps that can't be integrated with AD. Then you end up buying Azure AD, which kind of, it's quite expensive and a lot of things are happening there. Maybe you want to start trying out creating your own connector, maybe. Then now it becomes complex. Again, you're not an authentication company. You're a company maybe that's focused on retail, you're focused on fintech and other things. You want to be able to focus on your service, and you want to be able to offload the headache and the overhead of creating your own authentication flow to the experts, right? So we want to go to stage one at the least. You want to be able to unify your workforce identity access management. So in order to do that, let's check out the cloud security shared responsibility model. So today we're going to talk about a few things with Beyond Corp in Google Cloud. So we're going to focus on IAM and then protecting access to your servers and application in Google Cloud. Now, the way we translate this into security layers is that it falls under peripheral security. Okay. So the other thing is we you might need to spend on some other things. Let's say host security. Let's say you need some anti-malware in your server and other things. All of these pillars, you need to invest in them. Some of those the cloud already provides, like network security and physical security, but the host, application, and peripheral, you need to you need to invest in them. Sometimes you just need to configure, much like what I'm gonna show you later, right? So let's go straight to Beyond Corp. What is Beyond Corp? Well, when traditional perimeter vanishes, right? It means it's beyond your corporate network. Beyond Corp, that's the thing with Google. They make some terms, right? So the mission of Beyond Corp is to have every Google employee work successfully from any untrusted network without the use of a VPN. What that means is they treat their internal network as if it's the internet. So if you go to any Google Office right now, their Wi-Fi's don't have any passwords at all. Even in the main buildings in the US or Singapore, they don't have any Wi-Fi passwords there. Just connect. Sometimes they have the basic password, but it's not really that extensive. Just the usual guest password for some places. But essentially, they don't rely on network security alone. They check your device, they check your access level, your authentication, and all those. And all of those are happening at the back. Later, I'm gonna explain to you the architecture in a bit. So so the goal of Beyond Corp is to tear down the legacies of VPNs and network perimeters. Why? They're so hard to deploy and manage. They don't scale well. You leave important security gaps, especially when some users, leave their keys around, their computers got hacked, or possibly they write their username and password in some notepad or some desktop notes, sticky notes. Please don't do that, guys. Even though sometimes we can't get out of the VPN, don't write your credentials somewhere. Don't store it in unprotected places. Always encrypt it. Maybe use a password vault or some other credential vault. So the last problem is it's super expensive, guys. Right? Before OpenVPN, if I remember correctly, it it was free. I was surprised there's a price now for OpenVPN. So it's not that open anymore, I guess. So again, we want to get out of that. We want to be able to access our apps easily. We can deploy it faster with Beyond Corp. It's like a VPN experience without the VPN, like that. It has a very, very cheap cost. Actually, IAP doesn't have any cost added to it. Only the load balancer is the one that's being charged to you. It also helps you move towards a zero trust model in a faster way because you're already protecting your apps from multi-cloud. So what is Beyond Corp Remote Access? So this is the solution at a glance. So you have your user trust and device trust, depending on the context of the user. the Google front end, the GFE, will evaluate that policy based on the rules engine, and then it will enforce some actions depending on the rules that you were allocated to, and then give you necessary access to a web app, maybe to your SSH or RDP, to your SaaS applications and whatnot. So the workflow, the way it works is that you want to be able to access your apps via web browser. This works, guys, for web apps, by the way. Uh, thick clients, thick clients usually they can't be integrated with something like this. Um, for legacy applications, usually Okta comes into the picture because Okta bridges your legacy and modern trust implementation. But for this one, we would be assuming every app that we're going to talk about is a web app deployed in Google Cloud Platform, on-premise or other clouds. Okay, just to be clear. So yeah. Now let's take a look at what it translates to into Google Cloud products. So this is so your cloud identity is your user. Endpoint verification is your device trust. The Google front end is your external load balancer in Google Cloud. You have your rules engine, which is the access context manager in Google Cloud Platform as well. We have Cloud IAP to protect you and give you access to your SSH or RDP or even the front end, which I'm going to demo later. And then you can control that via Cloud IAM and via Cloud Identity. Maybe you want to use two-factor authentication. And then the VPC service controls as well. So VPC service controls, it's quite an advanced configuration in GCP. I'll let you search that part, but it's a very, very good way of implementing a service perimeter. It's not a network perimeter. We call it service perimeter because you're limiting users based on their IAM. So yeah, let's go towards the architecture. What does it look like in Google Cloud if I'm going to deploy it? Well, we need to set up a load balancer. You can use the GKE Ingress, by the way, as well. So this works with Compute Engine, App Engine, GKE. And then you point that out to to your workloads in Google Cloud. If you're going to deploy it in other clouds, we need to deploy a GKE cluster, which will be hosting, which IAP connector will be hosted on. So other things would be the device inventory. We need to enroll users. So I won't be demoing the device inventory because I don't have an extra device to enroll with. But basically, think of it as a Chrome, a Chrome plugin that you install. So the components here is today we're going to talk about cloud identity. We know this part. This is your Google account, your Google Cloud Platform account. It could be with or without G Suite. By the way, it could be federated from third party, from AD, Okta, or any SAML. Endpoint verification is the second component that usually we deploy to, let's say, to your managed computers. So we deploy that via the Chrome plugin. And then we define your endpoint policies. It looks like this. And then you have your access context policies as well. So endpoint policies is more on the device policy. Access context policy is more on we will pair it together with an IP, the device policy, and other policies. So let's do a quick demo. I'll show you around my Google Cloud dashboard. So this is, let's go through some things here. I'm gonna close this first. So I deployed a VM. It's a very small VM. This VM does not have any external IP. And then I'm going to show you later how do we access that VM without any external IP. I'm not using any VPNs, by the way, just to show you a proof. So let's go to VPN. There's no VPN setup here, 0 VPNs. And then let's go to the network. show you something. So what we're using is the Beyond Corp Demo 1. We're using that network, okay? The firewall rules we're using is number one, we need to open the ports for the IAP or the Beyond Corp proxy for SSH. So the Beyond Corp proxy allows you to, what it does actually is that it converts your traffic from HTTPS and translates it to any TCP protocols. So right now we just want to allow port 22 over the internet. So what's this IP? What's this external IP? This is the IP of the Google front end. Okay, that's the Google front end IP range. That's not the server's IP range. We will be going through the Google front end server, front end load balancer, and then that load balancer will be wrapping our TCP/22 protocol over HTTPS over the internet. So it's kind of weird. It's TCP/22, but it's actually running on HTTPS with MTLS. It's weird, but yeah, it's that there's some kind of wrapping that's happening. And then once we reach that and that load balancer, it will terminate the HTTPS and then translate it back to TCP/22. That's why we can SSH. For RDP, we can also do it. Any TCP ports we can add here. Okay. Now, other firewall rules that's relevant. So what we are gonna do is there's another Beyond Corp proxy firewall. This one is the firewall from the load balancer to point to our front end server so that we can load the website, right? So the other one is to point for the tunnel proxy for the SSH. So it's using a different IP range. And this one is for the front end, the web front end. So we're opening up port 80 because this one is pointed to our server. So between the load balancer and the server, I didn't bother setting up an SSL, but you can do so. Okay, so you can have a load balancer to the origin server SSL encryption. Right now, we're just gonna use port 80. So okay, so let's go to the load balancer and check out what's happening there. So the steps you usually take is that you set up a server, so let me go back to the server, right? We set up a server, an Nginx server. We call that Beyond Corp Nginx. It could be any server. It could be a three-tier application, three-tier setup as well. And then all of your web serving servers, clusters, are grouped in an instance group. Right now, we added that in a Beyond Corp cluster. So it's your front-facing web servers, and this cluster is unmanaged, meaning there's no auto-scaling here for the sake of demo. But usually we auto-scale it, right? We want to auto-scale that for high availability. So this one, we have one member, which is the Nginx1 VM earlier. We added it to the instance group that's unmanaged. And this instance group, we call it unmanaged because it's not auto-scaling. So it's here, right? Okay, so you can manually add more members to it. That group is being used for our load balancer. So basic standard deployment of load balancing. We point our 443, our HTTPS. So I pointed a website called xcore7.com. It's my game handle before, so I just used it for DNS, xcore7. So if you want to check it out, you can go to xcore7.com right now. It looks like this, xcore7. Yeah, so you can go to it now. It's pointed to that Nginx welcome page. So this one is pointed to the back end, the unmanaged cluster, right? So let's take a look at this one. It's pointed here to this instance group, and it has it's pointed to an instance group. It has a health checker. I turned off the CDN. We don't need it for demo purposes. Health checks, important guys, always set up properly. And then the host path rules, it goes to this cluster by default. Maybe if you have other clusters, feel free to add more here. Maybe slash images to some other clusters or backend buckets. You have slash transaction or slash user to going to other clusters that's managing your user service possibly. Now, front-end configuration, this first load balancer has 443 and a managed certificate. Okay, gonna cancel that. And then I have another load balancer to redirect my HTTP traffic to HTTPS. That's the only purpose of this one. Okay, I have that same IP, and then we have a URL rewrite policy here. That's all there is. There's no redirect to a server. There's no pointing to a cluster. Okay, so I don't need to configure the URL rewrite over the Nginx. I just need to configure this load balancer here, add two types of load balancer, HTTP and HTTPS, and then yeah, that's how it works. Now, once we've done that, we will go to the API services and then configure your OAuth consent screen. So OAuth consent screen, this is the screen where you see your sign in with Google with the consent and all those. So we created an OAuth consent screen called Beyond Corp Gate. It's not turned on right now, by the way, the IAP. I will turn it on in a little bit. So in here, you can create your own application. So for example, Lazada's running on Firebase, if you've noticed. So they configured their Firebase OAuth consent screen here as well. So any Firebase creations, you configure it here or via the Firebase console. Okay, it's the same OAuth consent screen. Because if you didn't know, Firebase is actually Google Cloud Platform. It's just wrapped and packaged for developers to make it easier to understand the platform. Okay, so so that's that. This one, let me quickly edit this to show you some other things. So we added that logo. It's a public. Any Google account can access that. We can connect this one later. I'll show you to identity platform. It's not cloud identity. It's the identity platform in Google Cloud here at the left side, at the very bottom around developer tools, identity platform. This one allows you to create your own authentication platform without having to rebuild that authentication database. So it's Firebase auth actually, but it has more features. So you can pick if you're going to use Firebase auth or identity platform of Google Cloud if you need inbound federation from SAML other or multi-tenancy. If you need multiple authorization servers, you can create them here in identity platform. Okay, so that's IDP. It's the same as Firebase authentication. That is Firebase authentication. So this one is your consent screen. We'll set some links up. I don't have any privacy policy link, terms of service, etc., but you can put them here. So I'm gonna go to my next tab, which is if we go to security, we can go to oops, come on, pop out. We can go to IdentityAware Proxy. So IdentityAware Proxy is where we set up how do we protect our HTTPS web resources and our SSH and TCP resources. So right now, again, it's turned off. If you need to set this up, there's a very good guide over the documentation of IAP as well. Do let us know if you've tried it and had challenges. Feel free to chat over the chat box. Now, before I go and turn that on, I'll show you a bit of the Access Context Manager. This one controls the policies on org level. So I'm going to select the collab.ph org. This assumes that you have an org level permissions. Okay. So what we're going to do is maybe we want to have, let's say, demo one policy. So you can have an advanced mode where you use the cell expression of Google to type your logic, or just the basic mode where you add your attributes, it could be an sub networks. It could be possibly a region. We're talking about Philippines. Maybe you're gonna whitelist or blacklist. So depends on your settings here. So right now, when condition is met, return true. That's our rule, right? So if you're in Philippines, then you're good to go. But if you turn this to false, if you're in Philippines, then you're blacklisted. Okay. Then per condition, you can add multiple rules, and then you can also create dependent access level dependency. So the evaluation, what it does is it compares your evaluation with other results of the other policies. Okay, so you can curate multiple context policy here, and then device policy. You want to be able to ask if the user has a screen lock, maybe require an admin approval, etc. So admin system policy in Windows, you can select which versions, right? So all of those require the endpoint verification plugin of Google. Okay, that's free over the marketplace, by the way, if you want to play around with it. So you can add multiple conditions in an and or fashion. So the way you configure it is this area. Usually it's done over advanced mode. Okay, so that's access context manager. You usually pair it up with identity aware proxy. For the sake of demo, we won't be going to that part. So let's go back to the project. Now I'm gonna show you that. So I'm gonna go to Xcore 7 and show you this one. So again, it's a welcome page for Nginx, um, and I'm gonna turn on the IAP. So let's go back to this one. I'm gonna turn that on. I have read and all those turn on. Okay. So the requirements again of IAP, we set up the firewall, we set up the consent screen, we set up the load balancer to point to that server, right, to that cluster, I mean, which the server is a member of. Now let's wait for a little bit, and then um, yeah. So because of the OAuth consent screen, by the way, Google will now start to redirect your your users to the Google login screen before they can access the server itself. So let's go to Xcore 7. It's still propagating though, not an as instant. So there's some DNS propagation that's happening. So the effect of this one is, I also forgot to mention this one. From an IAM perspective, the way you give access to a web portal is by selecting this checkbox, and then you show the info panel. Then you have your web user here. I'm an owner. I'm using an owner account, Mervin at collab.ph. So if you want to add the user explicitly, you just add this permission cloud IAP secure web app user. Okay. So let's check out if it's already propagating. Square 7. No, it's not yet propagating. It takes some time for this one. Now, maybe while waiting for that, I'll show you a little bit of the SSH as well. So right now, remember our VM doesn't have any public IP. All it has is a firewall rule allowing the load balancer of IAP, the 35 dot something, to allow TCP 22 earlier, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this cloud shell. So to show you, we have access here because we are an owner. My account's an owner here. Okay. So in here, what we do is we go gcloud compute instances list. So let's list that down. And then what we're gonna do is run the command G cloud compute SSH. So this is gonna be long beyond corp tab. Hopefully the tab works. Yes, the tab works. It's super easy, guys. Tab everything. So yeah, so we run that. So external IP address was not found, defaulting to using IAP tunneling. Now we're in, right? So we're inside the server without setting up any VPN, without setting up any special connections or whatnot, not even a jump server. Remember, we don't have an external IP here on this top line, right? There's no external IP. So if I try to ping Google because I didn't set up any NAT gateway, this server does not have any internet access at all. So all the traffic between this cloud shell, the provisioned cloud shell, and the server is running through that IAP tunnel through the Google front end. Okay, so 100% packet loss, 70 packets transmitted. And then this is how you securely SSH to your server without hassle. Okay, all you need to do is if you're using this locally in your machine, you gotta authenticate gcloud. I'm gonna exit this one. I'm gonna try to run some command gcloud config set project. You need to do this first, and you want to be able to set your project to the specified project you'd like. So maybe let's switch to KLB sandbox dev 1. Let's switch to another project context, and then let's list down some servers there, because that project doesn't have oh, it's quite, yeah, it's a fresh project. It's been used. There's no VMs, not even the API is turned on. So let's try to SSH to that same server. Simply because I'm in a different project, I cannot SSH to that server. Okay, because it's not, number one, it's not part of this project. So let's go back to that other project, gcloud config set project klb sandbox dev 2. Okay, now we can go back here, but first let me, I don't know if I can remove myself as the owner because I will lose access here. But usually what we do is if you don't want a user to have that SSH access anymore, you remove them from this permission page. And even though they can run this command, it will show an error that they don't have any access to the server. So again, number one, we don't have any public IP. Second, we don't have any NAT gateway. Your VM is in the private zone, and you secure the SSH. Let's check out the website. Still not propagating. Maybe I think I need to flush the DNS. Oh, there we go. So I used incognito. It loaded. So if you go to xcore7.com right now, it redirects you to a Google sign-in page. Right. So I just need to purge my site cache on the other one because there's browser caching. So usually the best practice is before you go live, you set this up first, because if you set this up after the fact, you'll have issues with the caching because the caching is loading the previous state of the website. Okay. So earlier I allowed my personal Gmail, right? And then so sumubok ng ibang paraan. I-tap ang oo. So it's quite a very Tagalog thing. So now we're inside. So I just authenticated to my app, right? Super exciting. Yay. So that's how you protect the back end and the front end, guys. right on time. Any questions so far? So that maybe concludes our quick demo of IAP.
Yeah.
Very nice demo.
Yeah. Any
Maraming
questions?
salamat sa demo, Mervin. Ako, may
Yeah.
question ako.
Sure.
Available ba tong demo na to sa somewhere to download and install, or you had to set it up all by yourself?
This one I set it up using the Nginx marketplace image para mas mabilis. You can use any web. Yeah. Tama si Jeffrey Opino. Yeah. The incognito.
Yes. May parang meron kang listahan ng steps that you did.
Yeah, sure. I'll send it.
Yeah.
I'll send it over. Set up IAP copy.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
That would be really helpful. Yeah. Galing.
So again, if you have issues, usually ang common na na-encounter ko dito is the configuration of the OAuth consent screen. Kasi syempre, if you're not a developer and you don't have any background on managing API credentials and client IDs and all those, dun lang siguro may konting challenge, possibly. So I'll send this over the chat. There we go.
And meron din tayong, thank you. Meron din tayong questions from the chat. Available ba ito for G Suite Basic Ed? Yan. From Joel.
Wait. Available ba ito for G Suite Basic Edition? Yes. G Suite Basic Edition, so si Cloud Identity, part na siya ng G Suite mo. So if you buy G Suite accounts, you get a free Cloud Identity license. So again, may dalawang identity products kay Google Cloud kasi. Cloud Identity, which is it comes in a form of free Cloud Identity license. Let's say, di ba gumagamit ka ng Gmail mo to set up Google Cloud, wala kang G Suite, and you need to create a domain. So pwede ka mag-sign up via this one. Dito sa IAM, tas set sa identity and organization. Pag clinic mo yan, tas naka-Gmail ka, meron doon nakasulat na sign up for Cloud Identity free. So magkakaroon ka ng Google account na nakatag sa verified domain mo, pero wala kang G Suite apps. Okay? Yun yung maganda doon, na kahit hindi ka G Suite customer, pwede ka magkaroon ng Cloud Identity. So may dalawa ka ng console dyan. The first one is yung admin.google.com, where you manage the cloud identities and multi-factor, ganon. If you're on G Suite, may mobile device management. Yung isa naman is yung console.cloud.google.com, IAM dito. So wala kang makikitang identity creation dito for workforce. Yung other one, si identity platform, ito yung ine-embed mo sa application mo. Para imbis na gumawa ka ng database, pwede kang magkaroon ng email and password registration, password reset, and all those. So, kasama na siya dito, all in one package. So, this one is Firebase Auth in reality. But Firebase Auth, if you use the console nung Firebase, console.firebase.google.com, tama ba? Yeah, something like that. If you use that console, may ibang features na wala. So, you can set that up, and then kapag mas kailangan mo ng advanced setups, which is multi-tenancy or other setups such as multiple accounts for each identity provider, meaning may walang linking, then you can use yung kay identity platform na. If your Firebase is using the same project, you will see the same thing here, meaning may naka-create ng users dito. Maybe if you created that Firebase auth. Nandito na siya. Kasi again, Firebase is Google Cloud. Google Cloud is not necessarily all of Firebase. Parang package kasi yun for developers. So in two ways. So for G Suite naman, if you go to Enterprise Edition, pati yung G Suite application may IAP na. Kasi sa Basic and Business Edition, wala kang way to lock down. Oh, itong Gmail, bawal ka sa
labas ng office or what. Walang ganon. Sa Enterprise Edition, may IdentityAware Proxy na yung G Suite mismo. You can lock down na, ikaw, yung Gmail, pwede mong i-access outside, pero yung Google Drive, pang office lang. So, yun yung meron kay Enterprise Edition. Question, will this PowerPoint, I don't think I can share this PowerPoint, but there's a recording that will be shared. The actual session will be shared. So, yeah. The slide, I can share it though. Yeah. Questions? Guys? Ayan. Chargers. So, ang cost mo, si IAP itself, wala siyang cost. Yung pinaka-service ni IAP. Ang may cost dyan na binabayaran natin earlier is yung load balancer mo. Kasi si load balancer, ang charging niya is yung policy, yung forwarding rule. So let me go back to this one, network services, load balancing. And then I'm gonna click on the advanced menu. So, ayun yung simple menu. Itong advanced menu, ito na yung mas may nitty-gritty. Ang may bayad sa kanya is itong forwarding rule. So, yung first 5 forwarding rule mo, isa lang yung bayad nun. Tapos parang per one other additional rule siya. Okay? So, yung isa pang may bayad dito, yung load balancer mo, yung ingress traffic, yung papasok. Yung meron kasi siyang pinaprocess na traffic. Pero sobrang mura lang yan, guys. As in, you can check out Google Cloud Load Balancer pricing over the internet. Super mura lang siya. Now, it doesn't mean, we haven't included yung CDN mo. Let's say, may website ka, internal users lang, or let's say yung identity platform users mo lang yung gagamit. Not cloud identity. Cloud identity is employee. So, given na yon. Paano kapag yung identity platform users ko yung gusto ko i-point doon sa IAP? Pwede yun. So meaning, hindi ka na magsa-set up ng login page. Yung login page mo si Google, you might want to use some CDN as well kasi may customer ka. So I'm also paying for DNS kasi yung DNS ko, hinost ko sa Google Cloud. Pero if you're using a separate DNS, then walang additional cost yan. So for IAP purposes, yun yung pinaka may bayad. Other things you might like to check out as well would be yung sa security. Let me go here. Maybe you're using WAF as part of that. So let's say you want to create a WAF, i-on mo yung anti-cross-site scripting, etc. So dito mo siya nilalagay. So test, tapos i-deny ko, forbidden. More rules, ito default allow. More rules, dito, advanced mode. Dito sa advanced mode, ang maganda dito, may rule syntax help siya na ibibigay sa'yo. So, kunyari, yung mga OAuth top 10, depende sa strictness, pwede mo ilagay dyan yung anti-cross-site scripting, SQL injection, kompleto sila, actually. So kailangan mo lang ng bit of scripting, pero super easy to use to. If you click on this documentation button, maganda yung ano niya. So ito yung potential cost din na possible. And other things would be SSL policy. If mag-a-apply tayo ng SSL policy sa load balancer, let's say, yung policy, ang policy ko dapat TLS 1.2 ka. Kasi let's say, payment gateway yung kine-create ko, kailangan latest encryption, then I will use this and then choose a target of this load balancing forwarding rule. Okay, so yan yun. So yan yung mga some extra cost for your security, usually sa load balancer, but not IAP. Okay, so yeah, that's that, Brian. And guys.
Salamat.
Okay na, Sir Brian. I'm good. Ready na kanina pa. Okay. Navigis. Thank you, Sir Brian, for the introduction. Hey guys, good morning. Yeah, I really hope I would be able to share something new to you guys today, and yeah, I hope I would be able to give you some takeaways in the next 45 minutes. So, just a quick survey: how many are developers here? Maybe you can just use the chat. Yeah. So I would know our audience, security folks, management, or business people. Oh, well, we got students. Okay, nice. All right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sa chat na lang para at least medyo ano. oh, oh, nice. We got someone from network security front end. Okay, so thank you guys. So yeah. Okay, so I'll moving forward. So yeah, I'm Aaron Victorino, and I'm a security lead at Navagis, GCP architect as well. So yeah, so here are my credentials and portfolio. Um, so Navagis focus on providing geospatial and maps cloud solutions. So yeah, next. So what this session will cover is security command center. It's finding sources, GCP services that integrate with SSC or security command center, and yeah, we're going to do a demo later on how we can get started with security command center, and Q&A. Very important. So for the meantime, let's just uh, type our questions in the chat box, and then I'll try to answer them later after the demo. So what we are not going to cover basically with the session is how to set up the uh, basically the rules, or basically the findings on each GCP service that are integrated with SEC. But I'll do give some helpful links on setting up those later as well. Okay. Next. All right. So security command center is basically similar to or it's similar to Splunk. Or if you're familiar with an SIM, or security information events management tool for the security folks, it's very similar to that, and it's the native SIM for Google. So SEC enables visibility, threat prevention, threat detection, and threat response. So I would like you guys to remember this highlighted words, because we're going to answer how SSE uh, shows, or how SSE gives information on threat prevention, threat detection, and threat response. All right, so yeah, I'll just show SSE here. So this is the Security Command Center dashboard. Um, these are the sources. As you can see, we're going to talk um, about them one by one shortly. But I would just like you guys to see exactly what SSC looks like. Um, and yeah, so one of the things that I love with SSC is the assets info page, or basically it's yeah, everything that you would like to know within your organization. So there's this normally in an enterprise level organization, you would see a lot of projects here. Some projects are owned by development teams, or by departments. But for this demo purposes, I only have 3 projects. So each information here would show what are the resources within the project. So for example, this one, I have a couple of instances or servers within this project, and yeah, I do have some routes and networks as well. Okay. Now there's also in the assets dashboard, you would also see the asset types. So if you would like to view the GCP resources based on their asset type, you can also do that. You just need to yeah click on the asset type, and then for example, static IP addresses. You would like to know how many your organization is using, or how many static IP addresses is your organization have, or being used, or not currently attached to any GCP service. Now, the next function for the assets dashboard is the assets change. So what you can do here is, let's say for example, you would like to know what has changed today. As you can see, you have 116 active GCP resources. But what has changed today? So you can also view here, today you removed 4 services. Uh, yeah, basically I did remove firewalls earlier today. So it's showing the default firewalls. But what if I would like to know the resources that has changed in the past 7 days? You can also do that by just clicking this part. Okay. So in the past 7 days, you would see that there's 7 or 8 services that has been added, and 4 has been removed. So before these changes, there were a total of 108 active GCP resources in my organization. So guys, it's important to remember that SEC is in the org level, so it's not in the project level. So everything that's within your organization, you can see here. Okay, so yeah, I'll just go back to slide to the slides so we can proceed with the sources. All right, so going back, SEC, as what I've shown you, gives us visibility on the resources that our organization is currently using. So it gives us a lot of information on what has changed, what has been removed um, within our organization assets. Okay. All right. Moving on. Okay. So one of the resources in SEC or Security Command Center uh, is Security Health Analytics. So this is one of the native sources where you can get information within your organization. So I will skip reading all of this and just give you the takeaway for this source. So basically, what Security Health Analytics does is it audits your organization resources versus a certain set of benchmarks or uh, compliance or regulatory best practices. Some of these are CIS, if you're familiar with Center for Internet Security, PCI DSS, which is for financial, NIST, the standard for US technologies, ISO for the global industry standards, and OWASP. Okay. Am I going so fast, guys? I'm sorry, guys. I'm a bit
Yeah, all good,
nervous.
all good.
Okay. All right. So I'll just do a demo for Security Health Analytics. Okay. Let's go back to the Security Command Center. Okay. So this is the Security Health Analytics dashboard. As you can see, it currently has 76 benchmarks where it audits your organization resources against. Okay. So on my demo project or demo organization, I currently have a lot of findings or basically vulnerabilities. um, by the way, you would know if your organization has triggered a certain benchmark. Um, you would see a number at this part where it says active and what benchmarks it has triggered or audit policies from those benchmark has been triggered. So for two-factor authentication that Sir Mervin has mentioned earlier, if you have not um, implemented it in your organization, it would trigger CIS 1.2, PCI, NIST, and ISO. So yeah, as much as possible, we don't want to get um, this many compliance policies being triggered. Okay. So yeah, there are a couple of severities for each vulnerabilities depending on the number of benchmarks it fails to comply. Yeah, so there's this high. Um, I don't have the critical one, so there's another level higher than the high severity, which is the critical. There's also medium and low severities. Okay. All right. So I'll just go back to the slide so we can discuss the other SEC sources. All right. So cloud anomaly detection. So this one is very this one I really love because it's very helpful when it comes to detecting crypto mining, cryptocurrency mining, botnets, or any anomalous actions or behavior within your GCP organization. So I don't have this on my demo. As you can see on my sources, I don't have this uh, alert on SEC. But so what I did was just create or get a screenshot. By the way, this screenshot is from a first-hand encounter. That's why it's very memorable to me because I basically had this first-hand experience with a bad actor doing some bad stuff. Yeah. So yeah, just to give I'm really amazed with this feature because as you can see, it was able to detect a leak credential. So for example, you have a user or um, a service account that has been leaked. Google was able or Google Cloud was able to detect where that leakage came from. So basically, you would know right away what you need to do to prevent or to stop the bleeding. Because when I had this first hand encounter with this bad actor, when I basically log into the console, I see 250 instances, and it keeps on running. Thanks to the quota, it limit the the creation of instances. But yeah, um, with this feature, you would know right away which needs to be fixed, which needs to be uh, li- uh, which account needs to be limited, or which account needs to be suppressed uh, to stop the bleeding with your GCP organization. And you would also know right away, um, yeah, in the properties of these alerts, you would see the IP addresses where this abuse is coming from, and the URL sites where they are um, pushing the cryptocurrency hashes. So if you guys are familiar with cryptocurrency, what they do is they generate hashes, and it turns to a Bitcoin or an Ethereum cryptocurrency. And of course, it uses before you can generate those hashes, it would require server resources, like for example, GPU, CPU, those kinds of server resources. Okay, so yeah, moving forward. Okay, so this event threat detection, it's similar to the anomaly detection source of SEC. However, is this one streams the logs in your organization, cloud organization, for malware, crypto mining, brute force SSH, and outgoing DOS, and IAM anomalous grant. So yeah, I actually noticed. I tried to replicate, or I tried to trigger this event source from SEC, and I noticed that if you give a service account an admin permission, or for example, owner or editor, this might trigger this event source, because normally it's not a best practice to give service accounts admin or primitive permissions. Uh, yeah, that's why it's very helpful to do the zero trust. So we just need or to give permissions that are needed by the users. Okay. All right. So yeah, that's next. Okay. So for container threat detection, um, yeah. Uh, SEC also detects if there's a change in the container's binary or library that was not originally on its image. There's also this reverse shell. Unfortunately, I also do not have this in my demo account. Yeah, because I'm not sure how how I can replicate this suspicious actions to trigger container threat detection. But mhm. Yeah, Sir Brand, go ahead. Mhm. Yeah. Thanks, Sir Brian, for that info. I'll try it out, so we can confirm if it would work. Pero yeah, if I thought kasi it would be let's say there's an container image, and then if you change something, I'm not sure. I'll
Binary
try it first.
authorization, yun yung binary authorization. I think for let's say you have a CI/CD pipeline, and then you want to ensure that you only authorize the and sign those images para siyang attestation per se. Ina-attest
Mm-hmm.
mo na tama yung image. So yun yung binary authorization, and chine-check rin niya yung mga laman ng binaries mo pag kino-compile mo yun using Cloud Build, yung pinaka CI/CD pipeline ni Google. Hindi siya ma-check kapag hindi ka gumamit ng Cloud Build. Yeah.
Mm,
So
okay.
yeah. So yun yung sa example that you're pertaining to. But the logs there, mapupunta rin siya kay Security Command Center. Kunyari may question mark na nangyayari doon, malalag rin. So for malware, I guess may question tayo dito. It's mostly on OS layer. You manage that layer for you. Walang current unless pwede kang mag-custom metrics. So for example, may custom metric yung agent ng anti-malware mo. Tapos yung custom metric na yun, nasa Google Cloud Logging, sinet mo na mag-alert siya. Let's say may specific header ka na hinahanap or specific packet nung log na yun or log pattern, then pwede mo i-alert. Pero it requires an anti-malware to be installed, sir.
Mhm. And normally, what Google recommended is Clam AV, unless you would like to use a third-party anti-malware for Kubernetes. Okay. Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sir Marvin, for the additional info. Okay. So yeah, I'll just move on with the GCP services that are automatically integrated with SEC. So one of the services is Cloud Security Scanner. So what this does is basically it scans your website for vulnerabilities like, for example, cross-site scripting, um, flash injection or SQL injection, mixed contents, duplicate URLs, outdated libraries. Um, yeah, so basically this is one of the as I've shown earlier for SEC, this is the threat prevention, because it would show us our what is our organization vulnerable from. So it would tell us that your libraries are outdated, you need to update, something similar to that. Now, this is a GCP service that is basically um, within the security realm as well. However, this is where you need to configure it or set some configuration so you can trigger or basically do uh, uh, do the scanning. All right. So yeah, I tried to do a web scan on my test website. I think last Wednesday, but it does not have enough URLs. Sorry to say, but normally what you would do here or what you would see here is Web Securities Command Center would crawl on your endpoint URLs. So normally you would see if your website has hundreds or thousands of uh, paths, you would see it here, and you would see the results at this part. Basically, your vulnerabilities, your duplicate URLs, or if you do have outdated libraries, you would see it here. Yeah. So unfortunately, I was not able to do it on my on my Engine X demo. Okay. All right. So moving on to the next GCP service. It's DLP. Okay. So what basically DLP does is it checks your data. If there's PII or personal uh, information identifiers, you would be able to it would be able to alert you, or it has a configuration where you can set um, the action that you would like to use. So, for example, you would like to mask your social security number up to just show the last four digits. It's possible to do it with DLP. So, just to give you a demo, I tried to run a scan or do a DLP, exposing an email address. Yeah. So for this test DLP scan that I did, it was able to find an email address here. Um, it was able to find one because I just put in one email address on my test file. Yeah, and what DLP would do once it um, uh, triggers or it finds an issue or an alert, it would send this information to Security Command Center. I'll just switch screen. By the way, for DLP, there are a lot of informations that you can um, use, or there's a list of informations that you can use to filter, or if you would like to filter IP address, MAC addresses. But for this demo, I only use this informations. All right. So as you can see, the DLP finding was shown in the cloud DLP source. So if I click for the security professionals or the people that manage your organizational security, you would be able to easily identify um, on which project this finding was found. So you just need to click the finding, and yeah, you would be able to see here the project, virtual cloud admin prod, and you would see here the information or the category that triggered DLP. So it's an email address that has been shown. Okay, so yeah, going back to the slides. Okay, the next GCP service that integrates with Security Command Center is Cloud Armor. So there are just two alerts that you would see for in SEC for Cloud Armor. Basically, it's if there's a sudden increase in the traffic of your um, uh, website, or if there's a sudden increase in the number of block rules that are being triggered, or if there's a sudden increase in the number of rules in your cloud armor that's being triggered. So what just to give you an overview, what cloud armor does is as what was shown earlier by Sir Mervin, you could put their rules or policies where you can allow or deny IP ranges, or if you would like to block or allow location specific traffic. You can also do the WAF rules for Cloud Armor. So if there are things in like for example for OWASP, there's this top 10 rules that you would like to apply for your organization. You can do it uh, in Cloud Armor via its WAF functionality. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I was not able to um, replicate a trigger for Cloud Armor as well because it would require me to upgrade my free demo project because of the quota. Yeah, so I was not able to replicate it. Okay, so yeah, um, let's go with the demo on how we can get started with Security Command Center. So I'll just move my slide here.
Kaya pala maraming certification si Aaron na memorize niya yung classifications ng GCP. Yung wallpaper niya.
Oo nga, sige. Mm. Para alam ko na kaagad kung ano yung service na kailangan ko. If I need network, I'll just go to the network.
Tama.
Okay, so as mentioned earlier, SEC is an org level service by Google Cloud. So what we need to get started here is first we need to have an IAM role for the organization level. So um, it's either you have an organization administrator role or security command center permissions. Right. Hold on, it's not loading. Yeah, so this permissions, you would need this permission and yeah, several of this SCC or security command center admin permission. So yeah, I'll these are not visible in the project level. So yeah, some of you guys might try to um, give this permission in the project level. You will not be able to see it. So yeah, for example, what I usually do to make it easier for me to find permissions, I just type in uh, what I want, especially for security. Okay, so for example, security command center. Okay, so these are the permissions that are available for security command center. So you have security admin, editor, viewer. So there's a list of permissions that you can give because yeah, for example, you have auditors in your organization that you would like to uh, give viewer access, or the business unit would like to see what's going on with their projects. You can give them viewer access in the security command center. Okay. So once you have the permissions in place, you can go to SEC, or Security Command Center. It's very important that if you're an org admin, you just need to go to your organization. If you're an owner, or if you have permission just for the security command center, you just need to go to security, and then security command center. It would ask you what um oh yeah, it didn't ask me for the organization because I was already on the organization console. But yeah, if you're if you, let's say you're in the project level, um if you click on security command center, it would ask you what organization um you would like to view. So normally, if you have multiple organizations, or if you're an organization admin on multiple organizations, you would see a list, or the organizations that you own here in the drop down list. So you just need to select which one you would like to view, and it will automatically put you to the security command center dashboard. Now, before you can see this dashboard, you need to enable first the sources, uh, where the findings would be coming from. All right. So if you click on the sources or settings, you would see here these are the things that I've enabled. Um, Cloud anomaly detection, cloud armor, security center. So there are four native sources for security command center. These are the cloud anomaly detection, event threat detection, container detection, and uh, security health analytics. Now, the native services are the our GCP services are Cloud Armor, security web scanner, and yeah, I also do have Forseti here. By the way, you can also add vendors or partners security sources. So, for example, you would like to have um, yeah, you would like to add chef or here, yeah, McAfee security connector. You can also add them by just going to the add sources for the partners and vendors. Okay. All right. So once you've enabled the sources, you would be able to find, or you would be able to see their findings. Now, this findings dashboard would tell us, or would tell you, what are the findings within your organizations, what are the vulnerabilities, what are the basically what's happening within your organization on the security perspective. So I normally use this part if I would like to know how many findings have been, or have been created after, let's say for example, after June 1st or May 31st. So I just need to um, click on create time after, and then 05 31st 2020. Yeah. So it would show us for the month of June, we have um, 8 new findings that are currently active. Now, if you would like to know how many has been how many findings have been resolved, or basically you would like to know the total resolved and unresolved findings for the month of June, you just need to click um, this toggle here. So it would show also the resolved findings. Unfortunately, I don't have anything resolved yet for June, but that's why it's still showing 8. But normally you would see additional findings at this part uh, that are already resolved. Okay, so yeah, so you can also for the source type, you would see also here what are the things that or what are the findings based on its source. So as mentioned, we do have 4 sources for um, SEC and 3 uh, GCP services sources. So normally, if there's a finding, for example, with web security scanner, you would see it here on this part. Okay. So yeah, for the changes, finding change, you would see here how many are active. It's similar to the assets dashboard, where you would see how many are active, how many are inactive, how many has been resolved or changed. You can also go back in time if you would like to view uh, the findings in the last 7 days. Okay. All right. So yeah, you can also check their severity for the findings. So for I normally use this one for reporting purposes. So for example, I would like to see the findings, or how many high findings have been reported this June. I would be able to just filter it out here. So for example, after May 31st, yeah. So as shown earlier, I have eight created findings for June. Four of them are high, two medium, two low. So if you would like to see how many are still active, you just need to click the toggle here, and it would show you how many are active. So for me, if for my case, it's still eight because I still haven't tried to resolve them. Okay. All right. So yeah, just to give you an overview for the for SETI connector, I wasn't able to put it on my slide. But this one, it's an identity and access management tool that would basically give you the uh, option, or basically to give you the function on setting policies for your identity and access management. So if there's something that has changed within your policies, it would trigger for SETI. So for SETI does, I believe it scans every hour for your IAM policies, something like that. So yeah, yeah. So basically, SEC gives us the information, or gives us visibility on uh, what are the threats that we are vulnerable um, from, and what are the threats that are doing something in our organization. And yeah, and you can also use SEC, or Security Command Center, to trigger actions with your uh, as response, or threat response, for the findings that it would be able to generate. So you can use, what I've seen is cloud functions. You can also use uh, other things that, yeah, basically, cloud functions, it could do reverting of firewalls. So for example, you set a policy, or a trigger with your as your SEC. If there's a firewall change in your organization, you would be able to trigger cloud functions to revert it back to its original state. For example, a bad actor tried to enable SSH firewall, um, and it SEC, or once SEC finds or gets the finding of it, you can do the cloud function to, or you can trigger cloud functions to disable that SSH firewall rule that has been created. You can also do VM snapshots, uh, something like that. So yeah. So as mentioned earlier, SEC gives us the visibility, threat prevention, threat detection, and threat response. Yeah. So I guess yeah, that's all for me. Mhm. Yes. There's
Sure.
yeah. There's the, what do you call this? Security engineer certification.
Sure, sure.
Uh,
Thank you, Sir Mervin.
uh, magsisingit lang ako kung wala ng question. Parang based on experience, meron kasi kaming hinahandle na mga sites, iba-ibang cloud, iba-ibang hosting. One of them is AWS. Ang comment ko is, it's no longer siguro just a specialization. If you're running anything sa cloud, very basic yung security. Kailangan na siyang aralin. Kasi sooner or later may papasok na malware or yung mga spammer or miner sa yung hino-host, at kailangan to take action, no? Kasi very strict ang mga cloud providers na sa ganyan. Lagi nilang ini-scan ang iyong mga services, and pag may mahanap silang security hole, they'll give you 1 or 3 days to respond to it. So dapat alam mo na, handa ka na. Okay, may question ngayon sa chat. Yeah, hygiene na dapat siya, hindi lang siya if you want to specialize. Yes. Parang you can go deeper. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, tsaka just to add, security command center kasi is very useful. Kasi for example, you're managing an organization that has multiple projects, di ba? Um, it would take time for you to identify um, an basically a malware or an anomalous action if you would check those services one by one. So basically, SEC would give you the view or the hub for all your um, security assets or organizational assets. So alam mo na kaagad kung saan ka i-start, or meron ako nakitang findings sa ganitong sa production na project na to. So alam mo na kaagad na ito pala yung kailangan focus kaagad ako dito. So with that being said, mas mabilis ka makapag-respond, mas mabilis mo masi-secure yung organization mo. Tapos syempre, pag mabilis mong na-up kaagad, it would yung cost or impact kasi for example, meron nga nagkaroon ng coin mining, nag-generate ng sandamukal na or ng 100 instances. Yung cost implication nun sa business kasi sobrang laki. So, ang nakita ah, mm, similar to that. So, kahit 15 minutes lang yun, 250 instances would really cost a lot.
Merong Chrome plugin para up to parang 75 people ata yun in one screen. Yeah. Mabagal lang yung internet ko ngayon, so hindi siya naglo-load lahat. So, thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Salamat. Thank you, Brian. At sa ating speakers. Salamat.
Thank you.
Daddy! Thanks po.
Thank you.